The kam can be of or to ham, because we know kam in Hebrew means ham. So this is what we are doing battle with. You know what I mean? The Torah itself, the word show. Yeah. Shalom, shalom.
All right, man. Shalom. Shalom, Yasharala. Shalom, Brother Shamar with Ancient Watchman. Here with Priest Kwanalawa. We're just going to have a quick discussion on certain things that's been going on. I know a lot of brothers are making a big fuss about the information that's being presented concerning Canaan, the wars of Canaan, and, a lot of the lies within the Hebrew movement. Priest Kwanalawa is here with us, joining us live. So basically, I know you were sharing something about, the mysteries of Torah, because that's what you specialize in, and that's the knowledge that I give you as far as that Torah goes and stuff. So, do you want to share something, the things that you were sharing earlier with us, as far as like, the showbread and the table and all that stuff?
Right. So okay, so give all praises to Yahweh first off, man, for having another day of life. Life's been rough lately, so good to see the brothers, good to see everybody. So one thing I wanted to point out is because we were going over the table of showbread and all that stuff, and we know about the temple, right? So the temple is a representation of not only your body but your soul, right? So that's why it's important to learn the temple. We know this from Ezekiel 43:10-12. That the more you learn about the temple, right, and our tabernacle and the stuff, even even your guys' New Testament says that it's like a shadow of things that are in the heavenly, right? And the heavenly, there is actually tabernacles up there. But anyway, that's another thing. But so this earthly tabernacle, right, this temple that he had us construct, it was in order for us to learn more about ourselves and more about our souls, right? Specifically, each person, the more you learn about the temple yourself, the more you'll learn about your own soul. So now, and we get an example of this. An example, let me give you a quick example to show you a link between not only the body but the soul. The kidneys, right? We all have kidneys. Most of us have two kidneys. There are some of us that have fused ones and whatnot, or have lost one or donated. But, we all have two kidneys for the most part. And so the word for kidneys in the Hebrew is the same word for utensils. And Kalia, can you get me the notebook for me real quick so I could give them the Strong's numbers for it? Yeah, the little green one. Let me get to the Strong's numbers so that way they can go look this up themselves and whatnot if they feel. So it is the same word that's used for the utensils in the temple. So in the temple, we used to have like spoons and forks and shit like that, bowls and pans and stuff like that, because we had to deal with, getting oil and putting it in here and grabbing the bread and flipping it over, just doing the, whatever tasks we had to do. We had, utensils, some type of tools that we used to help us along in that, right? Now, oh man, these fucking notes are so funny. Sorry, my notes are like, what I need. Let me see, where's my lesson? Oh, there it is. So, let me get this. It's in my lesson. So the word for kidneys is kalaya, right? And it is Strong's number 3629. But you can also go from 3615 to 3618 and also 3627 through 3629 in the Strong's Concordance. Kalaya means kidneys as in central organs, or the mind as an interior self. They also translated it as reins sometimes, right? So now, And then, like I said, if you go also that word, it means like utensils. Prepared apparatus comes from kalai or kala, right? It means to be finished or complete. A prepared apparatus, a receptacle, right? It also counts for like all of the furniture in the temple, which it's not really like furniture, but like, you know, the things that are in there, or it's counted as furniture. So now let's get an understanding of this. So the utensils that we use to take care of the duties that we had within the temple represent your kidneys, right? And your kidneys also mean like an inner man. They're like a secondary mind. You know what I mean? It's where like your emotions come from, basically. It's like that when people get gut feelings, you know what I mean? And they you know, the butterflies and all this stuff that you feel in your stomach. All of that stuff is produced like from your kidneys. You know what I mean? This is why there's such a link between your brain and your kidneys. Your brain and your kidneys are actually very much linked together. Whatever affects one is going to affect the other. This is why Yahweh really gave us the food laws. It wasn't just because he was hating on pigs to hate on pigs, or hating on whatever or whatever. You know what I mean? It was all for a purpose. Because certain foods do damage to our kidneys, and if it does damage to your kidneys, it's going to do damage to your brain. So this is a lot of the reasons why people are still fucked up in their minds, is because they're not consuming the right things. You know what I mean? Which doesn't help, considering like all the food and everything is fake nowadays anyways. But that's partly of why back in the day Yahweh had those food laws and has those food laws for us, is so that we don't fuck up our minds, you know. And the same thing with your brain. If something's affecting your brain, it's going to shoot down and affect your kidneys, which is then again going to affect the rest of your body. You know what I mean? Because your kidneys are your filters. Same thing with like your brain, you know what I mean? The filtering part of your brain. This is why people have problem with discernment now, you know what I mean? Um, so, and it's also a tool that's used to get things done, because certain emotions are meant to get things. There's a time for everything, you know. Like they're getting angry at idolatry and you know, and false way and all this shit will help, you know, take care of these things and like stuff like that. Like back in the day, like Josiah got angry with everything and cleared out all the abominations that were in Israel. Like stuff like that, you know what I mean? That's like a good instance, like how in the Psalms David tells us about perfect hatred, you know, stuff like that. So, and then there's also love, there's fear, you know. So there's certain things where certain times that will help, you know. So it's just telling you, you know, that the kidneys are an important part of your body, and they're in the temple, you know what I mean, itself describes. So this is how the temple knowledge works, right? It's giving you different layers, like, hey, this is what we did physically in the temple, but this represents what's going on in your body, and this represents what's going on in your soul. So it's like a threefold process, right? So now that we understand that, we go to the table of showbread, right? And the table of showbread, it's shalakan lakam, right? Table is shalakan, showbread is lakam. Now,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you could break those down individually. You know, lakam, you know, is a triconsonantal root and all this stuff. But the thing is with Hebrew, what a lot of people don't teach about Hebrew is when you're breaking Hebrew words down, you always want to try to take the word down to its smallest root. You know what I mean? Because that's going to give you the basis of what the word is and its morphologies, and what like the actual definition for all this shit is, you know? So you want to get the word down to its absolute root. And usually it's going to be a triconsonantal root, which means three consonants, or it's going to be a biconsonantal root, which is two consonants. And so Lakam itself, they'll tell you, is a triconsonantal root. It has three. You could break it down around three consonants. It's right. Let me get. Here, I'll get the Strongs so people can have the go check it out themselves, because I don't know how I function yet, and how I, when I say something, I actually mean that it's in there. I don't just like post to people like Angel Pardo and a bunch of assholes online that really piss me off. So so check this out. So Lacam, you could check that out in Strong's number 3898, right? Also 3899. In fact, you could go from 3898 all the way to 3903. And those are all words that have to do with Lakam. So it's like Lakam and then Lakamai and Lakamam, you know what I mean? Which are all just variations. Those are all suffixes added to Lakam, which give variations of the word. Like for instance, okay, so you go 3898, it says to feed, figuratively to consume, by implications to battle as destruction. Lakam means to fight, do battle, or engage in combat. It says it is also used to describe single hand-to-hand combat. So that's what lakam means. So not only does it mean like the showbread, because it means food. If you go to 3899, it says food for man or beast, especially bread or grain. You know what I mean? So this is what the word was for bread, you know, and you keep going down and it'll tell you, you know, food like. So not only was it bread, special bread, because remember, we baked 12 loaves of bread. There was 12 lakam, right? One for each tribe of Israel. So this is what that represents. This is what it had to do with. And remember, we used to sprinkle frankincense on that showbread, right? And frankincense in the Hebrew is labana, right? Or labawana. And it has to do with like Lebanon, labanawan. It's the same thing. It all has to do with being white, because frankincense is like a real bright, like whitish yellow fucking, like when you break it down and stuff, when you're ready to burn it. And then it also has to be, right, then you have Lebanon. Lebanon's called white because all the mountains are snow-capped and the cedars of Lebanon have white bark. Then you have bricks. Laban also means like a brick, you know what I mean, from its whiteness. So the bricks that we used to produce had like a grayish white tone. This is why Adam, you know, when it says that he was made from afar, that he was made from the dust, that the dust means like a gray powdery color, and it also had to do with like if you wetten it, it becomes what's that, mortar, right? Mortar, what you put in between the bricks. So our bricks and our mortar were like the same color, like a whitish gray color, right? And now, so Laban, right, is a brick, right? And it also means frankincense and stuff. Well, Laban can also be Laban, or of or to the sun, because Ban means sun in Hebrew. So you could break that up because La can be a prefix. So Laban, even though it's its own word, you could still break that word down further. And this is what all, even the Hebrew lexicons tell you, is this is what you're supposed to do with Hebrew. Keep breaking it down until you can get it to its smallest, you know, word. And Ban is a word. So it's a Laban, of the sun, to the sun. So we represent bricks. So Laban, of the sun, to the sun, is the same word for Laban, which is bricks, which this is why we are all a brick or a part of the temple of Yahweh. Yahweh's temple was constructed, the outside portion of it was constructed with, but these bricks were hewn and they were carved out while we were in the quarry still. So that represents being in Egypt. So we must refine ourselves. We must, you know, cut ourselves, square ourselves off, you know, make ourselves into bricks so that we could be transferred to the temple and put in place like Legos. Basically, that's how they constructed the temple, with like Legos. They just stacked everything. They just like fit together, you know, which is the same way like Machu Picchu and all that were constructed. They were constructed the same way we constructed our temples. You do everything in the quarry and then just transport it and drop it in place. This is why I said that no tool was to be heard when constructing the temple. But yeah, so that's what we are. We are all stones, you know. Even your guys' New Testament says what, that we are all lively stones and blah 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 and all that stuff, right? So it's telling you the same thing, but it also means to do war. So to do battle, to do hand-to-hand combat. So this is part of like what our journey is about, is doing war, like having combat, you know, like fighting the wars of Yahweh, like David fought the wars of Yahweh, you know, because David did a lot of the battles. Like he fought. What did Yahweh say? You know, that he would make his enemies his footstool. You know, so that's what our process is about. You know, and lakam, right? So our process, it means to do battle. it has to do with the 12 tribes and consuming grain and bread and stuff, right? But lakam can be broken down just like laban can be broken down. Lakam can be of or to ham, because we know kam in Hebrew means ham.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what we are doing battle with. You know what I mean? The Torah itself, the word showbread, when it said that we would make showbread and eat it. And what did David do? David went to the temple one day looking for food. You know, David went to the temple and he got in contact with the priest and he was like, hey man, you got any food in here? You know, and he's like, well, we don't really have any food, but like right now, but we have the showbread from yesterday. You know what I mean? You could have the old showbread. And what did David do? David took the old showbread. And then what did David proceed to do right after that? He asked him, hey man, you have any weapons in here? And he's like,
Right.
no, we don't really have any weapons except for the giant sword that you got from Goliath, you know? And like I was saying before, this is why in animes and in, video games and stuff, they have this character that carries this giant sword that's bigger than them, you know what I mean? Like Final Fantasy or what's the Inuyasha or what is it? Yeah, Black Clover. There's a bunch of
Right.
fucking shit where it has this character that has this giant fucking sword, you know, and that's what that represents. They're mocking David. And so, but what did that show you? That David went in, ate showbread, got a weapon, and went out to go do more war. So that's what the table of showbread is about. And whose sword did he take? Goliath. What was Goliath? Goliath was a Philistine. What's a Philistine? A Philistine is an Egyptian. What's an Egyptian? Egyptian's a Hamite. In fact, they called their country Kemet, Kamath, Kamai, which means Ham. You know, this is
Mm-hmm.
why it tells us that it's the land of Ham. And so that's Lakam also represents. It's doing war to Ham or towards Ham or of Ham, fighting the wars of the Hamites. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because they are a major nation involved in Psalms 83. They are the Hagarenes. They are the Gabal, the people of Gabal. That was a city of the Canaanites. They are the Tyrians. They are the Philistines. You know, it lists the African nations multiple times. You know what I mean? So right
Right.
along with Esau and Amalek, right, we should be talking about them. You see, you have these camps running out there on the street corners, fucking yelling about Esau all goddamn day, but none of them are exposing the Philistines. None of them are showing people who the Hagarenes are. None of them are telling them who the people of Gabal are or the Tyrians. They're just like, oh, those are just Africans. Well, what fucking Africans? And how are they in confederacy with the Edomites? And how are they stealing our land and our people and our heritage? Like, well,
Do you want
what's
to
going
share?
on there?
Right. Do you want to share what you were saying as far as like what you were saying connected with, as far as like how, what do you call these guys? Amalek basically is siding with these Canaanites that are still amongst us today.
Right.
Even in the music industry, even in these camps and religious institutions and whatnot, to push out an agenda to deceive their own selves, but also to deceive, the real Shemitic Hebrew Israelites, which is
Right.
our people.
Yeah. So, and I'm glad you brought that up. So that's an awesome point. So what we were discussing before is, and what we wanted to bring out is how, okay, first off, it's really getting annoying how these people who are against all the information that we're bringing out try to make it. They put words in our mouths. You get what I'm saying? They falsely accuse us and they falsely bear witness against us, which is against Torah law, and can get you death.
Right.
They slander us and they tell us like, oh, you're teaching that there's no black Hebrew, or oh, you're teaching that it's a Latino only, and all this stuff like that. But if Bon would be so kind to come over here, this is my Ak. His, and you could say hi.
Shalom. Shalom, everybody.
Shalom, brother.
I'm Hayaman Manadzak. I'm the guy who you guys see on his post sometimes.
And this is a black Native American.
Yeah. Hold on, let me get some light so you can guys see. What's up? Shalom.
Shalom, brother. Shalom.
But as you notice, you know what I mean? He has the same skull structure, facial features, everything that we do. He is merely a dark-skinned Native American, who people would falsely label as black or Negro. So this whole madness about, you know, and he knows his family tells him comes from natives, like he has his all the everything, you know what I mean? So people, there's all those laws that took a lot of us and jumbled us among the nations. It's the same thing that we have with the whole Hispanic thing. You know what I mean? Like in the Southwest, we know this a lot. They'll label everyone Hispanic that has a Spanish last name, but you got these fake Jewish crypto Jews, you know what I mean, who have Spanish last names that gave us our Spanish last names because we were slaves to them, you know, and they're counted as Hispanic, but we're counted as Hispanic, and they're trying to mold us into the same people, and we're fucking not. And this is where you get a lot of these BHI people going like, oh, you guys are Spaniards, you guys are Spaniards. And it's like, no, we were owned by them and we are mixed among them, and they fucking are like have the same last names as us, not the same people. Well, the same thing happened to those natives that were more dark skinned, especially on the East Coast, you know, because brothers from Michigan. So especially from the East Coast, what they did is they took a lot of those brothers. Look at the Virginia Act. They took a lot of natives and they were like, oh, well, what do we do? Well, let's just call them black. And let's just lump them in with them. So we have a lot of brothers that were labeled as black but are actually native Indian. And these are things that we have been teaching and showing people since the beginning, but they falsely accuse us of teaching that there's no black Hebrews. Like, what kind of stupid shit is that? The point is that those people who were brought from West Africa on slave ships were not Hebrews. Those were Africans, and they were placed among our people, and our people were placed among them, and now there's confusion. You know what I mean? Granted, the majority of people who they label as black in America are from the Hamitic fucking people, but there's still a decent percentage that is not. And those are the people who we're trying to wake up. And those are the people who we're trying to show that, hey, man, you're not some African. You are actually from the United States of America. Look up your family lineage and check it out. You know what I mean? If your family lineage doesn't go back to that, then not. If it does, then cool, you know? So that's what we're fucking trying to teach people and tell people, right? And this goes in with the war of Ham. We're fighting this war with the Hamites, trying to separate our flock from their flock, trying to get out from under their control. You know what I mean? And it's the same thing. Okay, so these same people, right, that get mad and tell us that we are anti-black and all this shit, right? So they'll try to claim that they are the tribe of Judah, right? And that they are the Judites, and that the Judites are to be praised by the rest of the tribes, and all the rest of the tribes do whatever the Judites say and do because they are the salt of the earth. Everybody knows that they go to Matthew and they're like, oh, Israel's the salt of the earth. And they're like, oh, see, we have all the flavor. You know, when we do this type of music, people follow us and do this type of music because we're the salt of the earth, brother. We're the tribe to be praised. We're Judah, man. Whenever Judah does something, the rest of the world does it, brother. You know what? Come on, yo, you know what? So, you know, you get all that fucking dumb bullshit. And so, you know, that's one of their arguments. Oh, we're the salt of the earth. You know, oh, whatever we do, someone follows and all this shit. But then you really got to sit back and examine, like, okay, well, what salt are you giving people? You know? And you'll find out it's iodized. So, like, this is the problem. They try to claim all this shit like, oh, well, you know, this is the reason why people do all this shit is because Jake does it, you know, Judah, man. But the thing is all the things that quote unquote Judah is doing is what the Jews told them to do. You know, the Jews are the ones that write all the music. The Jews are the ones that write all the movies, right? All the fake Jews, all the Amalekites, right? They're the ones that control media. They're the ones that control fashion and fucking all of that shit. So what are they really pushing? They're actually pushing Amalekite shit. So the Amalekites are getting these people to push their movies, to push their music, to push their agendas, to push their fashion, their Western world, their fucking Western way of thought. And they're getting the merchants to push it on everyone. And then now the merchants are turning around and being like, oh, it's all us. When really they're just stealing Jewish culture and claiming it as their own. But then yet they'll turn around and call everyone else swagger jackers. They'll call everyone else culture vultures.
Right.
But yet, whose culture is that? Where did you get that song? Where did Jay-Z get that song from, dude? Oh, a Jew gave it to him. Where did who Michael B. Johnson Jordan whatever the fuck get the role for Black Panther? Who wrote Black Panther? Oh, a Jew. You know what I mean? Like who did all these things? Who was the one that created FUBU and blah 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 and all these fucking bullshit brands and Jordans and all that shit? It wasn't them. It was Jews.
Right.
Right.
Right, and let me point something out too. As far as when when we hear about "ye are the salt of the world," I brought this up a while ago when I said that back in ancient times, salt was used to preserve meats, right?
Right.
So when we are called to be the salt of the world, we're supposed to be the preservers of the truth, the preservers of Torah, and if they're gonna be called themselves the salt of the world, well, they're not preserving nothing.
No.
It's actually the other way around. They're actually corrupting Torah. They're corrupting the Bible. They're corrupting history. They're twisting a lot of historical evidence to put themselves in the timelines of history to
Right.
twist the story. And like you were saying, hijacking everybody else's history but themselves.
Right. Exactly. And that's what they were always known as doing, because they were the merchants. All they would do was go over all the other places of the earth and they would buy and sell and trade. This is like what I was explaining to you earlier. Like people like the Kemetic community and all these people will come down on the Hebrews when they were fighting the BHI, and they're like, oh, well, if the flood happened, how did the animals get everywhere? And it's like, well, the Canaanites, dude, like they were taking shit and shipping it everywhere. They were the Amazon Prime of the ancient world, dude. You know what I mean? They were merchants, bro. They would
Right.
take this and take that over there and sell that, and then they'd buy that, take it over here and sell that. So you got to think they were getting all of these influences from all these different cultures, and they were assimilating it into their own culture. And then now they're turning around and be like, oh, we were the real Chinese. We were the real Japanese. We were the real Native Americans. We were the real Egyptians. We were the real Europeans. You know what I mean? It's like, no, you guys were just the merchants that went around taking all their shit, and now you're claiming it as your own. It's the same
Mm-hmm.
thing that they've always fucking done. And the reason why, like we were talking about earlier, is why they cling to Torah so much now is because the Canaanites don't have a culture of their own other than idolatry, sexual deviancy, child abuse and sacrifice, all this fucking shit, dude, that they're known for in the Torah. That's their actual culture. Anything else they have, they got from someone else. Same thing with now in America, they're pushing Amalekite culture, you know. But see, the thing is, though, is that they cling to the Torah because the Torah is the only real document, the historical document that writes so much about these people and about their daily lives and what they did and how they acted and all that shit, when they didn't even do that for themselves. What does Lil Wayne say? I don't write down shit because I ain't got time or whatever the fuck, This is the mentality of all of them, dude. Jay-Z doesn't write down shit. Nobody writes shit down. They just fucking go, that's the mentality, and that's how they've always been. So they didn't write anything of their own down except for the Ugaritic texts, which do nothing but talk about their idol worship, which, right now, what do you have? Just a bunch of videos and Facebook posts, which are the equivalent of them writing text down, talking about their idol, talking about the idol of the Ammonites, their fucking Yahweh Shai fucking black African space Christ idol, This shit's fucking dumb already, dude. Raptor Jesus and shit, dude. Like, this, what the fuck, man? Dude's a shapeshifter, goes from black to white to black to fucking, what else next? Like, goddamn, dude. But so, like, this is what they're known for, and this is why they cling to our records so much, because it talks about them in there more than anywhere else. The problem is that they're trying to steal it as their own, which is what Psalms 83 talked about. You know
Right.
what I mean? So it's just all of these things, that nobody's really sitting down and examining and thinking about. And this is what people like me and you and all the brothers are trying to do, man. Hi, I'm on here. Like, we're all trying to get people to think. It's not okay, whatever. You don't fucking like the information, whatever. A lot of people don't like information. But the problem is try to at least think, man. Try to examine what we're saying, take
Mm-hmm.
the information that's being presented and compare it to the norm. What's compare and contrast, you know what I mean? And then think about it, meditate upon it, you know what I mean? And then try to think logically about it, dude. And if you do those things, which obviously we have done, then you'll see what we're saying isn't fucking wrong. You know what I mean? This
Right.
is why nobody can come and challenge the actual facts, They're just sitting there yelling at us about some Latino only chart, and like, who the fuck came out
Right.
with what fucking chart, and who said Latino
Just a
only?
bunch of
I
slanderous campaign against us, right?
Right. I
That's
teach a brother from the Philippines, and he's an Israelite, you know, and he looks Filipino, and people would probably call him an Asian, all kinds of shit. But the brother's fucking learning temple knowledge and doing good and fucking excelling and all this shit. And there was a lot of Filipinos that were Israelites. Damyat even brought that shit up, how they transferred a lot of people from over here to over there and vice versa and all that stuff. So you know what I mean? So it's like, who are you guys talking about Latino only? Like I teach a Filipino that I think is an Israelite and that we treat him as an Israelite. You know what I mean? Like, so what are you guys fucking talking about? Like, none of these things make any sense. All they're doing is slandering. All they're doing is fucking talking all kinds of fucking shit and creating straw men and other logical fallacies to try to get people off of addressing the facts. Like, why are they spreading propaganda like the tomb of Rekmir showing the Egyptians building a tomb, but they're calling it Hebrews? Why are they still pushing the Zondervan Pictorial Bible Dictionary definition of Ham when that is based off of white supremacy and the Hamitic hypothesis, which Al-Azhar and them admitted what was going on? You know what I mean? Like, why isn't anybody addressing who the Canaanites are, and why does it talk about them in Ezekiel 28 the way it does, and all this other stuff? You know what I mean? No one's discussing Psalms 83 and how they're all in confederacy against us, like the Moors and the fucking Kemetic community and all these Masonic groups. Like nobody, none of these people, none of these naysayers are addressing any of these things. What about the Amu and the Shasu on the walls of Egypt? Why they all look like us but not them? You know,
Right.
so like, what's going on here? Like, what's the fucking deal, bro? Like, why is it that these guys are still pushing propaganda and pushing one West rhetoric that they've gotten over and over? You know, and go ahead.
Right. So what you were saying earlier, like what you just said now, like a lot of these cats, a lot of from the Hebrew movement are saying, well, these so-called Hyksos coming into Egypt are actually Canaanized, but a lot of
Right.
brothers don't understand that they were coming from Canaan. Obviously, they
Right.
were the Hyksos were going to be called Canaanized, just like if we come from America, we're gonna be called Americans by
Right. Right.
geographical location. You
Exactly.
know, right,
Exactly. That's why Moses was called an Egyptian, because he came from Egypt. You know,
right.
you're
So
absolutely
now they're
right.
saying, you see, now the Hyksos are actually canonized. So now they're saying that we are the canonized, which is
Right.
completely nonsense.
Right.
Right.
And it's like, how could you say we're the Canaanites when our people here in the Americas fit the curses to a T, and you guys don't? And how did we go from, because they call us white and fucking all kinds of other shit. So how did we turn so-called white if Canaan was a black African nation? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then, like you said, with the Hyksos thing, how we were discussing earlier, they don't even know the source of that Hyksos shit. They don't even know what they're really talking about. They'll talk about this Hyksos stuff up and down, but they don't even know that, like, how could you claim, okay, so to claim that the Hyksos were Canaanites means to reject, like, everything. That means you got to throw Josephus out the window, and if you throw Josephus out the window, there goes your Hyksos shit. So which is it? Are you going to accept the Hyksos thing, or are you not? Because if not, then let's just, move past all that bullshit and talk about the Amu and the Shasu are real titles in Egypt. Or, you could keep going with the Hyksos shit, but then you're going to have to acknowledge Josephus and the fact that the Hyksos were Hebrews, and no, we didn't conquer Egypt, and no, we didn't do half of that shit that was nothing but propaganda pushed by Manethos.
Right. Right.
So, you know what I mean? That these are things that have to be addressed, and nobody's fucking trying to do it except for us, and everybody's yelling at us for it. You know
Right.
what I
Right.
mean?
And then you got the Hebrew, like the so-called not so mighty Hebrew, talking a
Oh,
lot of crap, pushing a lot of basically about a bunch of nonsense if you think about it,
right,
because I know he's talking about Lemuria and Atlantis and the Sumerians being us. You know what
right,
he said? He told me when I got on the phone with him a while ago. He was telling me like, oh, the Sumerians is actually us. That was the prototype of the Israelites back in the day. I'm like,
right,
wait a minute, what? That's
right.
crazy.
Right, because the Torah tells us that Sumerians, that Sumer, Shinar, was built by the Cushites, and the Cushites were the ones who inhabited that land. You know what I mean? See, this is that type. It's because the mighty Hebrew doesn't tell anybody that he's actually a mystery school adept, an initiate into those things. This is why he talks about Lemuria and Atlantis and all that, because all of that is mystery school doctrine for pre-flood civilization. That
Right.
is all that stuff is talking about. When they talk about Lemuria and blah, 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 and all this stuff, it is nothing but the mystery schools esoterically or exoterically talking about their esoteric teachings of pre-flood civilization, which was as advanced as we are now. This is why Torah says there's nothing new under the sun. This is why they find ancient artifacts like fucking old computers and fucking all kinds of whack-ass shit, you know? This is why there was genetic engineering back then and dinosaurs and fucking all this shit. It's because back then,
Right.
pre-flood, the Watchers brought down ancient technology just like they're giving them technology now. That's why it says there's nothing new. All they're doing is rediscovering the stuff that was the pre-flood. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Yeah, and
So
there's been
that's
discoveries like you know, under the layers of the earth, you know, where they found like
huh?
computers, you know, and so on and so forth, and like mechanisms that basically, you know, defile like a lot of the things that we know. Like how, what is this doing in the strata of like supposedly, you know, 1 million years of strata, you know, like the
Right,
layers down
right,
in the soil, you know, and they it doesn't make sense. But you know, I get what you're saying, but yeah, like a lot of these cats, like I know you're part of that group also, you know. The Mighty Hebrew and then Jeremiah Judah, you know, we added
right,
onto that group where basically they
right,
talk a lot of crap and push a lot of pseudo agenda and
right,
Pan-Africanist ideologies within that group, and also like a lot of these followers from Mighty Hebrew, you know, subscribe to what he's saying, but they don't know that he's basically what you're saying, you know, a mystery, you know, school Masonic teacher, whatever the hell he's pushing, you
right.
know, right?
Right. And it's Kabbalah. Like that's what's so crazy is he's into the Jewish mystery schools. Because notice all these guys are Jewish. Like he when we were in that group, he tried telling me, "Oh, can you speak fluent Hebrew?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I can converse, you know." And then he's like, "Oh well, no, you speak the Abba God stuff, man. That's blah 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 blah." And I was like, "Oh what? So you speak Yiddish and you use vowel points?" And that's what he does. See, all of these dudes you'll notice are Jews. They're Jewish. They follow exactly
Right.
what the Jews do. And the Mighty Hebrew teaches Kabbalah because he teaches that from the Sephiroth tree.
Hmm.
It's called the Sephiroth tree, and he also teaches about the Merkaba, which the Merkaba is uh, basically, for better lack of better terms, it's a stargate used to contact demons. So, you know, and
Damn.
he has been caught multiple times spreading this shit. He constantly fucking posts pictures about it and all this stuff. So this dude is pushing a Jewish Kabbalistic agenda, which is nothing but sorcery, you know, and people are letting this guy slide, man, you know, and that's like part of the shit that needs to stop, you know. How are you
And
gonna
then he
push this man
claims
as a great man in the community and he's a goddamn devil?
he claims that he's Torah, you know, he's Torah based dude,
Right,
individual, whatever, you know. But if you really think about it, like a lot of this information that he's pushing out to slander, you know, what we're bringing out is basic. He's breaking Torah, you know, thou shalt
right,
not bear false witness against thy neighbor, right? That's the law, right? So, but yet on the other hand, he's basically doing the opposite of what the law, what he claims to believe in, which is, you know, Torah based or whatever.
right, right, exactly. That's where it goes into the whole scripture where it says that their mouths are close to Yahweh, but their minds are far from him. You know, so all these guys talk a big game and they act like they're about Torah and they act like they're about the laws and statutes and commandments and about following the ways, you know, but when it comes down to it, none of them follow the law. All of them break the laws of bearing false witness and lying and doing all that shit, you know, and it's like, for what? What are you guys so afraid? Like if our shit was so bullshit, you wouldn't need all of that. You know what I mean? Like we didn't need all of that. When did we slander or lie about anybody? All we did was
Right.
present facts, and it destroyed their whole fucking movement in with no effort. You know, all we had to do was just, hey, did you see this? And people are like, oh fuck, you know, and all of a sudden look at the chaos it started. But instead of trying to combat that, instead of trying to lacam one-on-one battle, they're trying to slander. They're throwing rocks from down the street. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So this is the
And that
type of
goes.
shit that. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, no, go ahead, bro. I was just
No,
gonna rant off.
right, and that basically goes like what you know, the spirit of the Philistines. You know, remember that Goliath
Right,
was coming against our people and all the host of the armies of our people of our nation. he was coming day in, day out, talking a lot of crap, talking a lot of
Right.
nonsense against our people. And guess what? Our people were like freaking out. They were so afraid. They were
Right.
so afraid. Everybody was just,
Right.
chickening out, like in there. Just mind you, there were armies, bro. Our people were armies, and that's exactly what we
Right.
see today. We see a lot of Latinos and Native Americans being a bunch of cowards, hiding
Right.
behind, their little doctrines of One West, not wanting to challenge, their own supposedly elders from One West and whatnot. But we
Right.
are, right. We are, and the
Right.
minute that we're doing it, we call all types of names, slanderous campaign, all across the board. But my point in saying that is that you see a lot of these so-called, so-called blacks being operating in the spirit of the Philistines, which is, they come
Right.
across talking all types of shit and nonsense against us. But like you're saying, none of them have been able to address the information that has been presented by you for the past, 2 years, and then the information that, that we presented as well now in this, the past 5 months now.
Right.
So
Exactly. So that's the part of the stuff is that we got to point out and let like everybody kind of keep an eye on and keep in mind that like though they're talking all this
this is your brother Shamar with Ancient Watchman. Again, I wanted to bring Kwanalawa, the priest, to give us a little bit of temple knowledge to our people and into the battle that we're doing against Canaan and all the false teachings within the Hebrew Canaanite movement, and how our people need to understand what is going on and the crafty counsel happening within the Hebrew movement, and a lot of the lies that are being perpetrated as truth to deceive our people and our nation, right? Because you got a lot of these brothers that are pushing black supremacy, Pan-Africanist ideologies, twisting the scriptures, twisting a lot of the things that we find in the archaeological records and stuff, to push themselves into the timeline of history. Like when I was saying, these brothers be saying, oh, we are the real Native Americans, this and that and the third, But anyway, I'm signing out. Shalom, shalom.